Listen, I know, Lauren, again, a lot of people, you were talking about earlier about, all these Democrats winding. You know what? I saw this one item, though. Tom Bonnier. Matter of fact, he just posted something about 30 minutes ago. He said, I know there were a lot of early give me one second. Let me go ahead and show y'all this here. He was saying, he said, I know there were a lot of early takes last week that the Dem base stayed home. But as the votes continue to be counted, we now know that Harris won more votes than Biden in 4 of 7 battlegrounds and ran almost exactly even with him across the 7 states. And you can actually see the numbers right there. So let me explain for people who don't quite understand what's going on here. And I've told y'all this here. I've said this to y'all repeatedly, that elections in America are driven by white people. In the last 2 elections, 70% of the electorate was white. Which means, and I know we always say, without black people, Democratic Party, I get all of that. But again, you gotta deal with the reality of whiteness. And so I'm gonna find another, I posted it earlier, what happened in Georgia. And they broke down the turnout in Georgia. So I'm just gonna here it is right here. Let me put it in our group me. Then I can pull it up on my iPad, because I really want y'all to understand what happened here. And then when y'all keep hearing me talk about the numbers, and why we have to vote at 70% of our numbers, this next graphic is going to help you greatly understand what I'm talking about when we talk about the numbers that people don't get. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to pull it up for you. Here we go. All right. This was, nope, not yet. Don't go to me yet. Here we go. Let me find it right here. Okay, this here dealt with, said Georgia is the first state to release full vote history for 2024. As a share of the citizen voting age population, turnout rates went up for all groups compared to 2020, except Black Georgians. So look at this data right here, okay? And the total turnout in Georgia was 65.9%. Look at these elections: 57.4, 52.7, 65.5, 50.7. So turnout in Georgia was higher in 2024 than it was during COVID. Look at that white number. During COVID, now I want you to look at those numbers. In the 2016 election, white turnout was 62.7%. In November 2020, white turnout went up almost 10 points to 72.1%. White turnout in November of this year was 74%. Now, let's look at Hispanic. Hispanic was 33.5 in 2016, was 38.6 in 2020. It jumps almost 4 points to 42.3% in 2024. But look at black. 2016, the black turnout was 53.3%. 4 years later, the black turnout went up almost 7 points to 60.2%. 4 years later, black turnout drops 2%. So, we walk people through this. If you look at the black number alone, look at this black number alone. If black people in Georgia had voted at 70% of our turnout, I dare say Harris wins the state.
Yep.
Now, I mean, the numbers are right here, y'all. It's right here. That's additional 12 points. That's additional 12 points. That is a significant number of votes. Now, I said the exact same thing. If black people vote at 70% of our numbers in Philadelphia, if we vote at 70% of our numbers in Detroit, if we vote at 70% of our numbers in Wisconsin, then Gary Chambers always talks about it, what's happening in Louisiana. Folks, this is across the country. And so a lot of folk don't understand this. And so I will say this, and let me be clear. The strategy that was given to Vice President Kamala Harris was stuck on stupid. Follow what I'm saying here. Listen to me very clearly. They handed Vice President Kamala Harris a campaign strategy that was the same as Joe Biden. That's Jen O'Malley Dillon. Anita Dunn got walked out. That's pretty much what it was. This is what I have been long saying. If you don't spend your money on concerts in Atlanta and you put that money on the ground, I would love to look at a forensic analysis to say how much money was spent on concerts in Atlanta. I totally understand media attention. And let me be real clear. I am not chastising Meg Thee Stallion. I'm not chastising any of these different people. I'm speaking about how do you win? Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to tell y'all, because I've already said it before, but this is exactly what I said to the VP in November of 2023 when we had the dinner with her. And I've said it, y'all, numerous times, ever said to other people. This is what Roland Martin said. The Biden-Harris campaign from January to July should be in a massive education, enlightenment, informative stage. I said, I literally said, y'all should be advertising enough with us to where we are in 6 to 8 cities a month, broadcasting town hall conversations, discussions with black men, black women, young folks. I wanted to do something with Pastor Jamal Bryant at his church, and I only wanted 35 and under in the audience. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about here. Now, all of a sudden, you're counting numbers. You're actually engaging in conversation. Because what is it the research shows? People said, I ain't know. I didn't know. Now, the vice president did some of this, the opportunity tour, but what I'm talking about wasn't dealing with her. These should have been conversations that they were driving with black city council members, black county commissioners, black state reps, black state senators across the country. So imagine if you were organizing these discussions in all of these cities all across the country, and obviously in the 7 battleground states. Now all of a sudden, you're spending 7 months educating, informing, and enlightening people on what actually happened. I said, then you go from July, August, September, you now are in a registration phase. Then when you get to September, October, you're now in a voter phase. That's literally how you win. It's literally how you engage. I totally understand. Everybody listen to what I'm about to say. I totally understand having an HBCU strategy. But HBCUs only have a total of 230,000 students, maybe 240,000. There are 1.6 million black students at PWIs. So here's the question. What was your black PWI strategy? I don't think somebody understands what I'm talking about. I'm talking about literally how do you engage and win? The numbers were there for Democrats to win. They were there. But what you cannot do is spend so much time on Liz Cheney and thinking you were going to get those Republicans because the numbers didn't lie. And all these other folk, and just, again, I appreciate all of the viral ads of the Lincoln Project. But have they actually moved 3% of Republicans away from Trump? Have any of those groups actually moved Republicans over? How much money was invested in them? How much money went to them? And I really want to know. I really want to know what's the total number that went to black groups. And I've seen some reports. The Reverend Sharpness National Action Network got 500,000. National Urban League got 2 million. All these different groups. If I'm the campaign, I want to know what you did with it.
It's very easy to find that out.
No, not how much you got. Well, I said what you did with it, because I'm talking about what you did with it. I'm saying, if I'm looking at how I spend money, I want to look at effectiveness for the next campaign.
Right. Well, so as you know, the FEC reports are being filed, right? So it's not hard to sort of go through the numbers and get a feel for where a lot of this money was spent. Obviously, $1 billion campaign that's only 107 days. But to the point that you made earlier, Roland, and happy birthday, by the way, about a plan of action that lasted, of course, more than a year, more than the campaign year. That's something that is heard at a lot of canvas kickoffs, a lot of barbershop events. I can't think of one barbershop event that I witnessed where somebody didn't look up and go, "This is the only time I've seen you." But one of the biggest problem of this campaign, in my view, is June 24. That leads to July 21. The vice president did not know that she was going to be running a 107-day presidential campaign. And, of course, she had to adopt the staff of Joe Biden, which is, of course, headed by Jen O'Malley Dillon. At that moment, everything is just compacted into this moment where you don't have the strategy that you'd normally have. I mean, I've seen campaigns for attorney general that were planned 2 years in advance. And this is a presidential campaign that she had to be a part of in 107 days. And to me, that is the reason that you don't have what you were talking about, Roland, with regard to a deliberate strategy. Now, that's not the reason you don't have a GOTV plan, because you can see something is wrong with the GOTV. I can't speak to Georgia, but the number in Virginia looks like it's going to be the lowest since the 1990s in a presidential year. We don't exactly know that yet, but it looks like it will be. So there's something going on with the turnout with regard to black voters that is hugely problematic. And it does lead to what you were just saying with regard to investing in things like, not only the concerts, which, by the way, I didn't have any problem with, but the lack of GOTV focus. There's something that was off there.
Yes, here's what I keep saying is happening, and I don't understand why these people don't get it. And I'm going to say it again right now. For every year you get away from the civil rights movement or the black movement, every year you get away from that movement, African Americans less self-identify as Democrats, which means that person is like, I ain't a Democrat, I ain't a Republican. Then they go, you're independent? Man, I ain't saying that, I'm black. Which now means you now have to expend more energy, more time, and more money to go after the group that you historically did not have to expend that amount of time, that amount of energy, and that amount of money. And so the problem is you had this white woman, Jen O'Malley Dillon, with no cultural competency,
right,
who was sitting there, who did not understand what was happening out here when people like me were literally saying it every single day. It was there in the data. It's in the conversations. So you had black folks who were sitting here like, all right, I might choose the couch. The couch was real. When did we start saying the couch was real? In 2023.
Right.
So, but when you run this campaign of, oh yeah, well we only gonna do, all right, we're gonna throw it a little bit over here. No. And then what did I also kept saying? I kept saying on the show, your runway is getting shorter. It's getting shorter. If you fly on a plane and you like, shit, come on, pull up, get the maximum energy, pull up, because I gotta clear the trees. Runway was getting shorter. And so as they kept BSing along, guess what? Runway getting shorter. So now you were losing your informative education and enlightenment stage. You already now into registration voting stage. So now you're trying to play catch up and, oh damn, how do I now communicate with folks? And the thing here, Reese, and I got no problem saying it, they weren't listening to black people. Black people were telling them, if I'm on a campaign and I'm looking, this is real basic. If I'm looking at a campaign and I gotta win Wisconsin, I gotta have 70% black turnout in Milwaukee. Right. And I've got to, and I know I gotta do elsewhere. Here's what they miss, Reese. They miss that white people increased their turnout. That's what they missed. Trump did better in Milwaukee this time than 20. He did better in Detroit, 13,000 votes in Detroit compared to 2020, but that's still an increase. You have to offset that somewhere. And so, again, what you're dealing with here, and this is what the James Carvilles and the David Axelrods and all these people, they don't want to deal with. They don't want to deal with, Reese, white Democratic strategists who don't understand that they have no cultural competency and know how to appeal to a changing multiracial electorate.
That's just the facts. Of course, white turnout increased. Everybody was going after the white voter. Duh. Everybody telling them their vote is golden. Everybody wants them. Yes, of course they're going to come out. The stakes are all on them. So, yeah, their vote is going to turn out. I think part of the problem is it really does go back to education and engagement. And it goes back to the choices that Democrats tend to make across all levels of government and trying to hop on the bandwagon of people who already have what they consider a platform instead of investing in the platforms that actually engage with Black people on a political basis and activate and move the needle with Black people on a political basis that speak to Black issues and not just entertainment and not just propagating the disinformation and the rage baiting and the Black trauma porn and all that bullshit. And so when they just want to hop on something, but those people don't have the credibility in moving the needle with getting people off the couch, with getting people to be able to carry forward the message of that education, when they don't want to invest in people who have credibility because they're not famous enough, because they're not celebrity enough, because they don't have enough followers, and they outsource the education to people who don't have the depth, don't have the range, and don't actually have the concern, who as soon as you lose or as soon as something don't go that way, oh, well, back to business as usual. We back to talking about who's fucking who's scoring what points, and none of this shit even matter to us. Meanwhile, those of us who do the work day in and day out, Roland Martin, Unfiltered, Urban View, the Root, Grill, all these people, Black journalists, I can name off 100 of them, who do this work, we still on the outside. We still fending for ourselves. We supposed to just scratch and survive and do this out of a sense of community and purpose, which we do, as opposed to being invested. And then they ask dumbass questions like, where's our Joe Rogan? Hello? Where's the money? Where's the investment? Where is the platforming? Where is the, hey, if I come on your show, you're going to have the best ratings. I'm not talking about my show. My show's lit. But I'm just saying for other people, The View got the best ratings than they had in how many years? Fox News, best ratings they'd have in how many years? When they make the choice to bring their capital and marry it with credibility of those who do this work, that could actually work, but they don't want to do that.
But also they're hard-headed.
They want to engage consistently. They just want to try to hop in and hop out, go to the Black churches, hop in and hop out, go to the HBCU, hop in and hop out. Right. This work, it requires cumulative, consistent engagement. To the extent that you can't do the level of work that is required, then you have to partner with those who are doing it and help build that ecosystem and that infrastructure. Until Democrats do that, and like you said, with Black people who have cultural competency, and not just us, because you got to get the Hispanics back, you got to get the Asians, you got to get everybody. Until they learn that lesson, then we going to all be sitting up here talking about how white folks did what white folks did, and we all sitting up there left holding the bag.
I remember, Greg, in the first quarter of 2024, a Trump PAC was running radio commercials they were running commercials on Black radio stations, ripping Democrats on LGBTQ issues and transgender. And I remember saying to several folks in the campaign, y'all better deal with this. I said, I'm telling y'all, this is going to be an issue for you. Blew it off. Late in the campaign, when I asked about those transgender commercials, this is what a high-ranking campaign official said. We don't see any movement in the data that this is having an impact. I said, don't nobody spend $120 million on ads and it ain't having no impact. No, they tested that earlier in the year and they saw the movement and they said, let's go hardcore with it, let's go all in. Again, this is what happens when you run, when you have arrogant strategists who say, no, we know best, candidate, we got this here. And I'm just gonna go, just like, listen, when they had that rally in Houston, even I went, why y'all going to Houston? I'm from Houston. I love my hometown. But I literally said, why are y'all having a rally in Houston this late in the cycle? Well, we're gonna center reproductive rights. I said, Houston, Texas you ain't winning Texas. I said, Colin Allred ain't winning Texas. He was horrible with Black people all around the state. That's why he lost by 9 points. So I'm like, you spend a massive amount of money on a rally in Houston to center reproductive rights as if that was going to make a difference. That would have made more sense to take that money and literally go hardcore on the ground in Philly, all across Atlanta, in rural Georgia, and Detroit, and East North Carolina. But again, I ain't a white Democratic strategist, but guess what, Greg? It's a whole bunch of white Democratic strategists who created companies that overnight took in millions of dollars. One of them just started 2 years ago. Greg, go ahead with your comment, and then I gotta play y'all. Somebody just posted this wonderful video from Representative Ilhan Omar. Just 3 seconds of loveliness. Go right ahead.
Roland, I mean, there is no one solution. There may not be any solution. And I say this again, I repeat it ad nauseum at this point, having no investment in the United States of America as an ongoing enterprise. My investment is in our common humanity and as an African person. The Democratic Party is not at a crossroads.
Nope.
And they're not going to change. They are soft white nationalists. We agree with many of their policy positions, which is why, and this is for my friends who are so radical, who are going to be fine, particularly the college professors who have benefits and health care and this kind of thing, who think they're going to be fine, who would say that you and I and Reese and Lauren and everybody here on this network are shills for the Democrats. I would advise them to read Ron Walter's book, White Nationalism, Black Interest. Black people move with the Democratic Party because the policy recommendations and the policy agendas of the Democratic Party more closely align with our values.
Right.
We have expressed them in our politics, not because we identify with the Democratic Party, using as a means to an end. That having been said, the thing that blocks the Democratic Party is, of course, their white nationalism. They are white nationalists. James Carville is useless as a human being.
No. James Carville, if you want to impress me, why don't you keep your ass in Louisiana and why don't you organize Democrats in your home state?
Well, that's what I mean, Roland. The fact of the matter is he does not want to impress you because you're not a human being. So
I don't want to hear him running his mouth. Why don't you organize Dems in your own damn state, James Carville?
He's not going to talk because black people are two-dimensional, one-dimensional, really. The black person in the mind of the average white nationalist is a movie black person, a basketball player, a singer. That's why they have huge rallies. They're feel-good releases. And at the top of the class food chain among the white nationalists, and this includes all the, as you call them, the smart-ass white boys, they're going to be better than fine. They're already preparing to spend millions more in the midterms. The challenge we have, and this is, of course, the challenge that we saw with Brother Jones in Arkansas, where the insufferable Huckassan, Governor Grimace, beat him because white nationalists would rather vote for an indeterminate liar over a literal rocket scientist because they will take their whiteness over everything, even on the way to the cemetery. The Democratic Party understands that, which is why they continue to chase the phantom white voter. When I say there's possibly no solution to this, I mean there's possibly no solution at the federal level, at the national level, at the conceptual level of a notion of America. To quote the late Elijah Cummings when he says, we're better than this. No, Representative Cummings, there's no we, and this entity is not better than that. George Washington was a fascist, where we're concerned. Thomas Jefferson was a fascist, as far as we're concerned. Abraham Lincoln didn't give a damn about us when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. He was trying to make love to the South, to make them come back home. So he didn't give a damn about us either. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were passed because the Union had no choice but to impose a federally supported military regime, 5 military districts on the South in order to break them, and they used us as the instrument to do it. That's why we got those amendments. After that, a century later, we fought our way out of the reconciliation between the white North and the white South. That was the Civil Rights Movement. And these white nationalists, aided and abetted with a federal government, have fought for the last 3 generations to roll back the 20th century. I think finally, perhaps now, they may have broken it and we may see some progress. What do I mean by that? White nationalists hate the federal apparatus unless they're in control, at which point they want to impose it on everyone. White nationalists hate state-level control until they're in control of it. Well, guess what? Now that you have the whole federal apparatus, now that you have, in the words we heard earlier from the mayor-elect, caught the car, you're going to realize that what you caught isn't what you thought it was, because now states' rights strategy can be inverted, you see. Wes Moore in Maryland, Gavin Newsom in California, Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. Fine, that's at the state level, but the key to this is the local level.
Yep.
James Carville is never going to talk to local people organizing, to local people on city councils and school boards. Well, guess what? We don't want you to talk. Roland, when you go through the South and when you go anywhere in those churches and those community centers in your work, that is the work that's going to allow us piece by piece to gain some measure of control. And when the feds come in there, does anybody believe that this is going to go smoothly when that man that sounds like he's been drinking in the day and stumbled out in the broad daylight, the one they're going to put out over ICE, Does anybody believe that when he tries to send some troops into New York City or South LA or Atlanta to snatch children, particularly teenagers or any child, out of a school room to say that they are illegal, does anybody think this is going to go smoothly? I'm not talking about there won't be pain. I'm not talking about there won't be violence. I'm not talking about the fact that they will use the military. What I am talking about is that having taken the apparatus, they may very well now, and I'm kind of counting on this, break it. Because the contradictions will be so stark and so obvious to everyone that individuals will have to make a choice. It doesn't mean people will be politicized, but it does mean you're not going to put your hand on my 6-year-old and not expect me to do everything to stop you from doing it. And I'm wondering at that point whether or not we're going to see something very different than polite conversations about who runs for president.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation 8 crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.